Good evening. This is Brian Webb, and I'm welcoming you to a webinar series that I'm doing tonight on the secrets of selling your home. As we get a couple more people that are logging in as we get this rolling. If you can hear me okay, let's do a little sound check. If somebody could type in there that the volume is okay, that would be very helpful. And we'll get going here in just a few minutes. All right, we're going to go ahead and get going here. Appreciate everybody's time this evening, and we're going to be talking through quite a bit of content this evening. My name is Brian Webb. I'm the broker and owner of Webb Real Estate here in Austin, Texas. We're going to be going through quite a bit of content, so we'll just dive right in, and we're going to hopefully have some time for questions and answers as we get to the end. If at any time during the webinar you have some questions that come about, feel free to type those in, and we'll see if we can address them all when we get down to the end. So again, as I said, we're going to probably cover a lot of content today. One of the things that we're going to go through kind of a little bit of an introduction about myself. We're going to talk about how we market a home. We'll talk about pricing strategies and some things to consider there, realtor considerations, selling and negotiating strategies, a kind of a high-level overview of the details of a transaction. Some people out there might be thinking, hey, can I do a for sale by owner? So let's talk through that. And then what Webb Real Estate can do to help you out. And then obviously we'll have time at the end for some questions and answers. So again, as I said, anytime during the presentation, if you have questions that you want me to make sure and come back to, feel free to type that in there, and I'll try to see if I can address them all as we approach the end. So just a quick intro about myself. For the first 18 years of my career, I was in the high technology sector, working in corporate finance, doing a lot of SEC reporting, large global project management, and a lot of merger and acquisition type activities. So that was the first 18 years. The last 11 years I've been involved in real estate on a full-time basis, working predominantly in residential investment and farm and ranch properties. I've closed over 350 transactions. I am an active investor in Austin, and we can talk a little bit about the market. And one of the keys that's going to come through as we talk about marketing and selling homes, about 70% of my business is marketing and selling homes, and about 30% is working with buyers. And you'll see as we kind of go through the presentation that there's a reason that my business is built on marketing and selling homes. So let's dive into marketing. First and foremost, how do buyers search for homes? Great key statistic, 92% use the internet for their search. So basically what we find is that everybody's online. They like to shop at home, they like to do research on their own, and they want photos, photos, photos. They want to be able to feel like they can educate themselves in a non-pressured environment. Maybe many of you out there like to search on eBay and shop on eBay. So again, people want to do their own research and then be able to engage somebody in the process. So who are we marketing to? Basically, we have two markets, two prospective people that we're marketing to. Buyers, the buyer community, and the realtor community. And they're very different in what they look for, and they're very different in how we market to them. So the buyers are very technology based. They want to see photos. They want to see the features of a property, and they're concerned about the overall pricing to know if it fits within their budget. On the realtor community, they're a little bit more old school. They're data driven. They're trying to take how many bedrooms and bathrooms a prospective buyer wants and correlate that into properties that are available. And they look more at price per square foot, price per acre, those kinds of things. So again, we must appeal to both of these market researchers. So let's drill down a little bit more on internet marketing. Obviously, the place that we start is the multiple listing service. And the multiple listing service is predominantly geared towards the realtor community. Now, much of the data that's in the multiple listing service will be syndicated to other websites that people use, but predominantly the realtors are the ones that use the multiple listing service. You may have heard of Zillow.com. Zillow has over 70 million unique visitors per month, and that represents about 20% of all real estate internet traffic. And that site is targeting predominantly the buyers. Trulia, 30 million unique visitors, again, targeting predominantly buyers. Same with Realtor.com. So really, when you look at these three sites and where they syndicate their data to, you're really looking at about 35% of all internet real estate activity. For ranch properties, we look at Lands of Texas and TXLS as an example here in Texas. We've got some people online from outside the state. But for ranch properties, we use those two sites predominantly, and those are targeting both the realtor community and the buyer community. And then obviously, My Real Estate website targets the buyers, but again, it's the listing inventory that's out there online that ultimately attracts the buyers to me. They're on these other sites, not necessarily that they're looking for me directly in the beginning. So one of the things that you'll see that's very key in how to successfully get your home sold is what's the infrastructure behind somebody's business. Again, if somebody's business, a real estate business, is focused on buyers, they can put somebody in their car, they can go show them some properties, and they really don't have to have much of a business infrastructure behind it. But when you're talking about how do you market to these different sites and to the buyers in the different areas, you really have to spend the money on marketing and to market effectively. And let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. Here's just a listing pulled up off Realtor.com, one of the main sites. And many of the sites like Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com work very similar. So a couple of things you'll notice here. Looks nice. There's only 7 photos. One of the main things that buyers look for is, again, photos. So they want to look for the maximum number of photos that a site allows. So as an example, the Austin MLS allows 40 photos. Realtor.com allows 36. So with only 7 photos, when somebody sorts their search in descending number of photos, this property may be on the 4th page of a search. So again, it doesn't get much visibility. Second key piece, over here to the right, you see that there's a banner ad. There's no realtor contact information. So what ends up happening there is if a buyer has an interest, who do they call? They don't really know who to go engage with. So let me show you how it should look. This is how it's done properly. Again, the main component looks very similar, but one of the things you'll notice is a maximum of 36 photos. Again, that allows the buyer to spend time looking at your property, imagining how they would own your property and how they would put their furniture in your property. And the more that they're looking at yours, the less time they're looking at someone else's. And then over here to the right, you see the direct broker contact information. And then down just a little bit lower, it shows all the other listings. So what we find buyers doing is they're online, spending their time searching, and then they want to go look at what other listings somebody might have. So again, we're engaging them in multiple different ways. And one of the main reasons that my contact information is on here is if they have questions or they have an interest level, who's the number one person that you want answering those questions? The person that has your property listed that's trying to get it sold, not having them ask the question to somebody who's never actually even seen your property. So one of the other big components of, or important components of selling a home is the automated feedback system. So when we get people who come through the door, we want to know what did they think? What did their clients think about your property? And basically, realtors are busy and they're not really focused on seller feedback. Not focused on seller feedback is probably a nice way of saying because their business isn't geared towards marketing and selling homes, they don't understand how important that feedback is to home sellers. So by using our automated feedback system, we get about a 10 times better response rate via an electronic, basically an email survey than we do by making phone calls. And I have to be honest, as much as I'm focused on how important it is for sellers to get feedback, if somebody calls me, a lot of times I won't have the time to return the call. It's also difficult to remember properties. You know, my rule of thumb is I don't like to show somebody more than about 5 or 6 properties in a day because they start to run together. Well, the same thing happens from the realtor's perspective. So by having an automated feedback system, it has targeted information. It has a couple of the pictures, the price, the MLS ID, and a set of targeted questions. So it helps them remember. And again, because it's electronic, they can answer that at 6 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night, not just during business hours. And that's one of the reasons we get better results. So again, it has the property details. It has a set of targeted questions so that we can best get feedback. The name of the game is consistent feedback with a targeted set of questions. We'll talk a little bit here about pricing strategies. I've had a couple of comments here that maybe the sound is breaking up a little bit, so we'll see if we can adjust that a little bit. When we talk about pricing strategies, really there's 2 ways to go about a property. Some people say, hey, let's price it high and have room to negotiate. The second school of thought is price it at the market value and hold firm on the negotiations. The name of the game is to get people through the door. We want people to see your property. We want them to get emotionally attached to it. If we price it high with that room to negotiate, many times we won't get the prospective buyers to come through and take a look. The other thing it does is if your property is overpriced and another property is priced properly, you've helped to go sell their property. So we always want to try to price it as close to market value as possible. Another rule of thumb is a 10% above market pricing reduces the prospective buyers by about 50%. So hopefully you can see that it's very key to price a property properly. So a couple of things to consider about from the realtor perspective of who you're going to hire. You know, you really want to look at their experience. Overall, the license requirements to get a real estate license in most states is relatively low. So one of the keys is to look at their background. Do they have a business background, or are they coming from maybe an industry that's not really conducive to marketing, selling, and negotiating? Another key I have people look at is look at whether they're full or part-time. In Austin, there's probably 7,000 realtors, and probably 5,500 of those are part-time. Maybe not quite that high, but a large percentage are part-time. So if they're working at it part-time, they're not going to have the infrastructure, they're not going to spend the money to market your property properly, and you're not going to get a good result. So again, it always comes back to that business infrastructure to market properties properly. Again, take a look at their negotiating skills and their background. You know, this is a huge asset for most people, and you want to make sure that you've got somebody who's good at understanding where the buyers are coming from, pulling out information that we ultimately can use against them in the negotiations. And you want to have somebody who has the market knowledge. You know, they don't just tell you what you want to hear. Every once in a while, I'll run across a buyer that says, hey, I want to price my property at 500,000 because that's what I want. When the market might be 450,000. There's a lot of people out there that'll just tell you what you want to hear and not necessarily tell you what you need to hear. Discount on commissions. We'll just hit that head on. If you happen to be in a very hot neighborhood where things are selling quickly, maybe sometimes that's warranted. But one of the things I always want people to think about is if you request a discount on the commission, number one, they obviously haven't shown you the value of what they do in marketing and selling your home. Secondly, if you discount the commissions, the person who's going to take the lower commission is your listing agent. So the one person that you want most motivated to represent you properly, negotiate strong on your behalf, and do a great job is the person that's now working for a discount. So I always say your home is one of your most significant assets. So why trust the sale to anything less than the best? So we'll talk a little bit about selling and negotiating. So when we start getting offers, what do we do with lowball offers? And what I mean by lowball offers is somebody who's come in that we may say may be an offensive offer. I never take offense to anybody's offer, even if it's low. The fact that they put it down on paper and submitted an offer to us and are willing to go through the cycle of negotiations, that's far more than a lot of people have ever done. So it doesn't offend me. It just means we have to go to work. Now, if you think back to the pricing strategy, if we've overpriced a property, we lose a lot of our negotiating leverage against that low ball offer because we're having to try to justify a price that's above market value. If we've priced it at market value, it makes the low ball offer look obnoxious, if you will. And so it makes it easier for us to get them to a reasonable value. What do we do with multiple offers? Which offer do you take? A lot of times realtors will jump at it and say, take the best offer based on the price. Take the first offer that came in. What we really want to do is we want to evaluate each offer independently on its own merits, because somebody might come in with an offer that's slightly less on the contract price, but they're a significantly better qualified buyer, and we want a buyer that can actually go through to the completion of the sale, as opposed to somebody who's going to bounce out in a couple of weeks because they can't really get their financing. So again, we want to evaluate multiple offers on their own merits. Contingent offers. A contingent offer is basically where somebody puts a contract on your property and they still have a property to sell. Normally, I would tell you this is not the best approach. But again, we want to evaluate exactly where they are. Is their home already on the market? Does it have a contract on it and it's just waiting to close? Is that close date a fairly short time period? How long are they asking us to lock up your property? We can negotiate contract outs by maybe having some checkpoints that say, hey, if they don't have their home under contract within 30 days, the seller has the right to terminate the contract rather than us being held hostage to when they want to terminate the contingency. And will their property sell? So again, I never turn away contingent offers. They're all something to evaluate, but we want the best information so that when you as my home seller are trying to make the best decision for you and your family, you've got the best information possible. So the next piece we're going to talk about is what is pre-qualified versus pre-approved. So, a lot of people will tell me, I don't want somebody to see my property unless they're pre-qualified. Well, let me help you understand what the two terms mean. Pre-qualified, which I say is about 90% of the prospective buyers out there. It says maybe they submitted a loan application to a mortgage broker. Maybe the mortgage broker has seen their statement of income. It may all be verbal. And they get a letter that says, hey, based upon what you've told me verbally, you're pre-qualified. But you won't be a qualified buyer until you've submitted all these documents to me. So when people bring me a pre-qualified letter, which is the largest majority out there, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Now, pre-approved is a little bit further down the cycle, and that probably represents 2% of the pre-qualification letters that we get with offers. So again, a pre-approval means that the mortgage broker has excuse me, seen a loan application. They've probably verified income, and sometimes it means that they've sent their loan application through underwriting. Now that sounds like a much more qualified buyer if they've gone through that process. And one of the things I say, I always call the loan officers directly. And the reason I do that is for a couple of things. Number one, I want to find out exactly from them where that buyer is in that cycle. Have they really kind of almost gone through that pre-approval process, or did he just meet them and really hasn't even seen a loan application? The other thing is, loan officers typically will give you information that helps us in the negotiating. So as an example, if I call a loan officer and he says, I've been working with these people for a while, we've got all their documents, they're very qualified, and they've lost 3 other homes. They really want to buy. Well, that kind of gives us a little bit of leverage when it comes down to the negotiations. So again, I don't rely on just a typewritten form letter. I like to call the loan officers and have that conversation with them directly. So another key aspect that I'm in definitely the minority that does this with my sellers is we get seller leasebacks. And what I mean by that is 99% of the realtors out there are going to tell you that you need to vacate the property the day before it closes. My buyers want to come to a walkthrough. We want you out the day before, and you've moved out. And what happens if the transaction doesn't close? All of your household goods are moved, maybe out into storage. And if the transaction blows up at the end at the last minute, what do? You have to move it all back in. So on probably 9 out of 10 of my listings, I negotiate leasebacks. And the leaseback can be anywhere from a couple of days to, say, 30 days. And what that allows you to do is it allows you can move quickly once the deal's done. But the bottom line is you move out when the cash is in your pocket, not before the deal closes. This is one of the single biggest things that I can tell you that my home sellers, this reduces their stress in the process because they know that they're not moving out until the deal is done. So again, the seller leasebacks are an important part. So now I'm going to kind of do a high-level overview of the steps in the home selling process. Again, we talked about, basically getting the home ready and getting the marketing and the photos done and putting it on the MLS and getting it into the other mediums where people can start to search and see your property. Then we get into the contract negotiations. So we've got somebody who's been through. We've received a contract. We've gone back and forth until all parties agree. Now we've got the contract in place. The next key piece of the process is what we call the option period here in Texas. And what it allows people to do is to go do their inspections. That option period is usually anywhere from 7 to 10 days. And they can do their inspections. They can terminate the contract during that period for really no cost or consequences for any reason. Maybe something comes up in the inspection they don't like, or it could be that they lost their job and they don't want to press ahead. It could be something as crazy as Aunt Betty told them not to buy the house and they changed their mind. So during that option period, they can change their mind for any reason. During the contract negotiations and the option period, the title search and the title commitment's going on. Basically, what this does is the title company goes out to search your title to make sure that there's no outstanding liens or debts that we don't know about, because you're giving good title to the buyer. You're telling them, hey, the title we're giving you is clean and there's not going to be any kind of debt that's going to come back that you're going to have to worry about. Then they do their appraisal. The couple of comments I'll make about the appraisals: sometimes sellers want to say, well, tell me what the appraisal was because I want to know if I priced my home too low. Here's the job of an appraiser. An appraiser is given the contract price before they start the appraisal. Their job is to validate that contract price for the mortgage lender, that it appraises for at least the contract price. So normally what you're going to see is, let's say we have a home that's contract price is $400,000. It might legitimately be worth $425,000. It doesn't really buy an appraiser or anything to show an appraisal at $425,000. So what you'll see is most of the appraisals will come in $402,000. They'll usually come in a couple of thousand over the appraisal or over the contract price. So again, their job is to validate the contract price. Then the loan package from the buyer goes into underwriting. Sometimes people refer to underwriting as the great and powerful Oz. It's kind of this black box that loan package goes into, and it's either going to come out approved or it's going to come out that they have some questions about it. So again, that's a couple of day process. But once that's done and all the questions have been cleared up and answered, they prepare the loan documents that they send to the title company. Obviously, then we schedule a closing to go sign all the documents. You receive your cash, then you move out. So you can kind of see how this is a pretty long, complicated process with lots of steps. But again, when somebody's business is built around marketing and selling homes, there's kind of a real clear process about how to make this run smooth so that it's easy for you throughout the process. So we'll talk a little bit about for sale by owners. One of the things people think is, will you really make more money out of the deal? One of the things studies have shown is that for sale by owners end up netting themselves less on average than if they use a real estate professional. And some of the reasons for that are, you're a little bit more emotional about how to negotiate. You may not price your property at the right value, so you may end up giving some away there. And then we'll talk about how many of the for sale by owners end up giving the commissions away in the negotiations anyway. Another key statistic is 90% of for sale by owners end up listing with a realtor. They get frustrated with the process. They start to understand how much they don't know, and they ultimately list it with someone. I'm not a mechanic. If I tried to go do a tune-up on my truck, I probably would miss some steps, and I probably wouldn't do it correctly. So it's always best to let the professional in that particular area of expertise take care of that for you. The marketing considerations. As a for sale by owner, you don't have access to the same marketing mediums that somebody does that's going through the MLS. Or sometimes you'll find what's called a limited representation agreement, but they don't have the same access to get photos and information to those buyers on the other sites like we talked about earlier. So it's a key component that you miss in the for sale by owner is really marketing it effectively. One of the things I talk to people about is security. You really don't know who's coming through the door. Most for sale by owners feel like, hey, I'll post my home on Craigslist. Well, Craigslist can bring Craigslist type individuals, and you don't know who they are. So security concerns are important. Disclosures. How do you know what to disclose? You know, the last thing you want in a real estate transaction is to fail to disclose the right things and ultimately end up in a lawsuit down the road that costs you a lot more money. Again, all these transaction details, as you were seeing all the different components of a real estate transaction, you don't want to miss them. And the buyer's agent commissions or considerations. You know, one of the things for sale by owners will say is, well, I'll go ahead and pay a buyer's agent 3%. And so, you know, I want to see, um, uh, I'll pay the buyer's agent, so they should bring their prospective buyers to me. I'm going to give you a generalization, but in general, will realtors bring their buyers to for sale by owners? And the answer is no. So on a listing, on the listing side of the house, we have a contract that I'm going to help you market and sell your home. On the buy side, many times these buyers have not worked with their clients very long. They don't have what's called a buyer's representation agreement, and they don't want to go show their homes to for sale by owners because they're afraid as soon as they drop their client off, they're going to drive back over to your house and try to negotiate with you directly. So in general, buyers agents don't want to go show people for sale by owner properties. So again, how can Brian Webb and Webb Real Estate help you? You know, we can help you directly marketing your property in particular. Here in the state of Texas, that's what I do. Central Texas is the market that I play in, and I can always help anybody here in Central Texas. I also have a referral program. I know we've got some folks online that are not here in the Austin metropolitan area. And if you decide that you want to sell in your market, I can do the same thing and find somebody in your market who's very well qualified to help you. And again, that improves your chances of success. So we're here to be your resource and advocate any way that we can. So we're happy to do that. So that kind of comes to the end of some of the particulars that we're talking about. If you have any questions, feel free to type those in. I've had a few that have been typed in here over the last couple of minutes, and we'll take a moment here, and then I'll try to address some of these. Steve asked, should I buy first and then sell my home? That's a great question. You know, in my 11 years of selling real estate, up until probably the last 6 to 9 months, I never would have recommended for somebody to buy first and sell second. In the Austin metropolitan area, we're in a market that's actually very active. Excuse me. That's very active, and sometimes it's harder to find the home that you want to. Sometimes it's hard to find the home that you want, and it's easier to sell your home. So again, it depends on how long we feel like it's going to take to sell your home. But sometimes in this market, it may make sense to purchase a home first. Again, every situation is on a case-by-case basis. Okay, another question here. Karen asked, what do you see happening in the Austin market? That's a great question as well. Here's kind of the high level overview of what's happening here in Austin. You know, all the economic forecasts are that Central Texas is where people want to be. Austin's adding about 150 people a day, you know, to the city's population. We added 30,000, close to 30,000 jobs last year. So the Austin metropolitan area is very hot. Inventory levels are low. And so the market is doing very well. In the farm and ranch, I'll address the farm and ranch market here just a little bit. One of the things that I've seen is that we're definitely getting a significant influx of folks that don't necessarily want to live in town. Maybe they work from home. They don't have to come into town every day, and they just want to be within, say, an hour of Austin. A lot of times they don't even know where they want to be in that proximity. They just know that they want a ranch property within an hour of Austin. So we've seen a large increase, if you will, of people that are coming here. Part of what's driving that is we're having an influx of people from California. We're having a lot of folks who have been involved with some of the oil and gas activities. So we have people coming out of Houston that have a little bit of royalty money, if you will. So we're having a big influx of people to Central Texas for a lot of reasons. If you look at pretty much any study that's out there, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, and Austin's always on top of the list are some of the best places to live, fastest growing, most affordable. Texas has a lot of very positive things going for it. All right, let's see if we've got another. Bob was asking about, can you talk a little bit about home staging? Yeah, that's a great question as well. Part of what we do as sort of the initial consultation with folks is, we'll come into your home and we'll help you understand what you need to do to stage your home. One of the ways I have people think about it is you're going to be moving in a few months. So if there's furniture, knickknacks, books that you don't use on a daily basis, it's okay to start packing those up. Put them in the garage, put them in storage. So we want the home to look its best. The other thing we want to do to some degree is depersonalize some of the personal photos, if you will. So again, we want to kind of try to work with what you have. I'm not a big fan on having people move their furniture out and go to professional staging companies and pay a lot of money to move different furniture in. I don't think that's a good use of your time and funds. And most people's homes, they're beautiful for a reason. They've lived there. They've made it beautiful. So we find that we don't need to go to any of those other steps. All right, it looks like we've got kind of one final question, and it's from Alice. She's asking, is now a good time to be selling in Austin? And it is. As I was kind of saying a little bit before, inventory levels are low. We have a great population increase. Interest rates are still at historically low levels. Financing is getting a little more difficult for people. They do have to be very qualified. But as long as they have decent credit, the right down payments, the buyers can get financing. So if you're in the market to sell, now is a great time to be selling. If you're in the market to be doing a move up, it's a little bit more of a challenge, so that we make sure we can find you what you want to move into at the same time that we're able to get your home sold. So that looks like that's the end of our questions. I hope this has been helpful. If there's any questions that arise that you'd like to address privately, you can always feel free to call me at 512-415-7379. I certainly appreciate all of your logging on here on a Tuesday evening. And if there's anything I can do, I'm always here to be a resource to help you. And I look forward to helping you any way I can. You all have a great evening. Take care.